I did want to say too, just because I think this will finish off that one point, that accusation, that response that you got from that leader and that I'm getting so often of, you're just blind or you just don't understand the Bible. First, just to say that that's an ad hominem response, which is another way of saying it's not a response at all. It is in the category of an irrational, illogical response, where rather than responding to the actual arguments being given, you attack the character of the person giving those arguments, which just goes to show that you don't really have a defense. So it's an ad hominem. Another thing I wanted to say is that Jesus never responded that way to people who had rational and logical objections to him, or to those who had sincere struggles and questions. Jesus never responded to those who had sincere questions and struggles by saying, oh, well, you're just of your father, the devil, and his will you want to do. Go look in the New Testament. And because what they're doing there, Kelsey, right, is when they use that sort of argument, they feel that they're justified because Jesus said that same thing to the Pharisees, right?
Well, right. And that actually brings me to another thing that I had written down that I was saving it for the cult discussion, but one thing that Jesus did is that he forgave the doubters. When you see like Peter disowned him 3 times, right? But who did Jesus say? Who did Jesus give the keys to the kingdom of heaven to? And who did Jesus say after he resurrected, feed my sheep, feed my lambs? Right? It was Peter. Right. So the WMSCOG, if somebody doubts, they're, questioning, oh, did that person look online? Or oh, that person doesn't have a good mind or a good heart. Like Jesus never did that. Jesus, he knew they had doubt, and he still appeared to them, and he still trusted them to advance the gospel. But the WMS does the opposite, and they say doubters are I would be considered a doubter, that I'm a slanderer, that anything I say is a lie against the church. So you really, again, it's back to the conversation of, the saying, what would Jesus do, right? So right. Jesus, he saw everybody for where they were at, and he helped them where they were at.
Yep.
And so
that's and actually I got a couple examples of that. And so that before I show you examples, that's exactly right. That the ones who Jesus would respond that way to by saying, you're of your father, the devil, you're blind. He would say things like that. But go and look at the examples of when he would say that.
Right. See the context.
He would say it too.
Right.
Yeah. And every time he never says it to somebody who has a rational objection, like a good reason to doubt. He says it to those who were in the face of miracles and signs that Jesus was doing, and just his teachings themselves, the words that he was saying that people said that nobody had ever spoken with this authority or this wisdom. So Jesus's character, his teachings, and the miracles that he were doing, he was providing conclusive evidence for everything that he was claiming. Everything that he was claiming, he was backing it up with evidence, largely miracles, and ultimately rising from the dead. And so when Jesus would say things like, you are blind, you're children of the devil, he wasn't saying that to people who had a good reason to doubt him. He was saying it to Jews, and a lot of times Pharisees, who had seen and witnessed all these things that he was doing, and they were still saying, oh, well, you're of the devil, you're blind, you're and so the WMSCOG is so far away from being in the same realm as Jesus was, as far as the evidence they're providing. I don't know of Ong Song Hong or Mother rising from the dead or doing any such things, any miraculous claims or any miracles to substantiate that they are who you think they are. And you might say, okay, yeah, I know. Go ahead and say it. I know what they're going to say. Right? And we need to talk about that.
Well, in Matthew, it says that the sign of false prophets is miracles and wonders. And so they say that's exactly the reason why An Sang-hong and Jang Gil-ja do not perform miracles, is because that's the sign of false prophets. And so, so they said the only way we can recognize them is through prophecy, which,
Okay, so was Jesus, Jesus, I guess, just didn't fit into that category?
Well, that wasn't talking about Jesus. That was talking about in the last days. Because I'm thinking, let me try to find the verse. I think it's in Matthew 23.
Okay.
Or 24. Yes, Matthew chapter 24, verse 24. Because Matthew 24, it says signs of the end of the age. The WMSCOG says, well, portions of this are talking about actually, no. Let's see. Yeah, this is talking about the last days, right? But different, I guess, times in the last days. But in Matthew 24, verse 24, it says, for false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and miracles to deceive even the elect, if that were possible. 25, see, I have told you ahead of time. So they say that they use this verse to explain why An Sang-hong does not perform any miracles, or why God the Mother doesn't perform miracles, is because this is the sign of false prophets.
Okay. Interesting. So I don't know. That's just probably a whole other ball of waxed open.
Yo, we could dedicate another 5 hours to Matthew 24. Right. I can tell you.
Right. Well, it's just another example of okay, wait. It's almost like you can almost see them sitting in a room. It's like, okay, obviously Jang Gil-ja isn't God, so she can't do miracles. So how are we gonna cover this up? Because if she's really, how are we gonna justify it? And it's just,
I think the miracle is her jumping from missionary to God in a year. I think that is like when An Sang-hong died. That's a pretty big. That's a joke, guys.
You can put that in there. Yeah, right. I got it. Yeah. But even you said, you told me, so even so, you said it's not about, to them, they say it's not about the miraculous things they do. It's about the prophecy.
Right.
But I would just say the same thing. The whole point we came to this whole discussion over is we're talking about Jesus, the type of people that Jesus condemned as being blinded by Satan. And I'm arguing that the WMSCOG does not have the right to make those same claims, because they are in no way providing the same amount of evidence in any way, by any stretch of the imagination, that Jesus provided. And so when Jesus had those kind of responses toward people, he was responding them in that way to them in that way because they should have believed, because they had been given every reason to believe. They
were like prophecies that literally were near impossible to fulfill. Being born through a virgin, right? Being like we don't focus a lot on Jesus, so I can't name a whole lot, but being crucified was another one. And these are very specific. Yeah. But being born from Bethlehem, there's so many people born from Bethlehem, but there's certain ones where it's like, this is not something that just any everyday person can do. But when you look at the prophecies they teach about An Sang-hong, being baptized in 1948 at the age of 30, and being Korean, and preaching for, there's no proof, but preaching for a certain amount of years, and these are things that anybody
so
can
far
really
all those
do.
seem to be, and all those so far that you listed, as far as I know, are made up prophecies rather than.
Oh, yes, there's a lot of controversy over who made up what, but yeah. So, but those are ones say they were say the Bible really said those. Those are very vague prophecies. Those are not on the same level as being born through a virgin.
Or Isaiah 53, where it talks about, he was wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities. Read through Isaiah 53, and this is something that has been done sort of as like a prank kind of video where a Christian will take Isaiah 53 and like put it inside a New Testament or something, and then go to a Jew who doesn't believe in Jesus as the Messiah and tell them to read Isaiah 53 and then say, who is that about? And they'll say, oh, well, that's about Jesus of Nazareth. And then they'll say, no, actually, this is Isaiah 53. And they'll be shocked because they won't, they didn't know that. And so, again, this is just a prank that's been done. But what that goes to show, I think, in many cases like that, is that the prophecies about Jesus are so clearly fulfilled by Jesus in some cases like that. But that's not the case for Ong Song Hong.
There's just the 1948 date itself. There's no proof that he was baptized in 1948. There's no proof.
And I feel, I'm biased, obviously, but I feel like we've done a pretty good job in past videos of debunking a lot of the bigger supposed prophecies about Ong Song Hong. I feel like you can pretty easily show some huge holes in, not only holes, but I think it goes beyond. I almost feel like just saying that there's holes in the prophecies. I don't feel honest even
there's
putting
holes
it that way.
in the WMSCOG prophecies, not what the Bible's actually saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just go even further than that, and just like, I don't even, in my mind, shouldn't even get that far, because as I said before, I feel like so many of the alleged prophecies that Ong Song Hong fulfilled aren't even prophecies. I mean, for an example,
they're just verses strung together called a prophecy. We're
kind of getting sidetracked a little bit, but like we've talked about this a couple times, the David prophecy, or the what is it, the 40-year
David's throne.
Christ must reign or preach for 40 years or however that. Like all that, that's just like, if you actually follow that prophecy down to its basis, it's not a prophecy at all. It just goes back to what we keep going. We keep emphasizing this is just another example of where the WMSCOG says something that the Bible does not say. In other words, the WMSCOG says that there's a 40-year prophecy like this, but the Bible never says that. It never indicates that the Messiah would reign for or preach for 40 years.
Right. Exactly. And also, when you look at David's throne, he actually reigned more than 40 years. A little bit more than 40 years. And An Sang Hong didn't even hit the Passover. And didn't keep Passover. And An Sang Hong didn't even hit the third. Even if he was baptized in 1948, though there is no proof, even if he was, then he still didn't hit that 37-year mark. It was like 36 years and like 3 months. Of course, if you really get nitty gritty with the prophecy, he should have not only hit the 37 years, but actually surpassed it by a little bit. So
all that stuff that you can hear, if you want to hear more of our thoughts about, we have talked about that in other videos, but all of that to say, the WMSCOG, I do not believe, has any right to make that same sort of claim that Jesus made, that those who have disagreements with them, those who present rational biblical objections or questions like the one that we're asking from the book of Acts, you can't say that same thing that Jesus said. You can't just simply respond with, well, you're blind, you're of Satan, because Jesus didn't respond, I don't think, to people like us when he said those things. He responded to people who were in the face of clear and obvious evidence, and they were denying that evidence. But what we're presenting to you is that we're seeing a huge contradiction in what you're saying. If Jesus was contradictory in something he was saying, and somebody called him out on it, he would have addressed it and explained it, not said, oh, well, you're of the devil, or you're just blind.
You need to go back to the scroll of Isaiah and read it more carefully. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I just, hopefully that response will stop being used. We'll see. I'm sure it'll continue to be used by many. But I do think that a lot of the stuff I'm learning that we're saying in these videos about this, it is making people think. It is making members think. There are those, I think, a lot of times probably newer members, less mature, that would probably be more likely to respond in that way. Yeah. Hopefully some of what we said there shows you why that's just not a good argument, and it does nothing to answer the actual questions we're asking that causes you to even respond that way. It certainly doesn't solve the question we continue to ask from the book of Acts. So, man, there have been like 15 things that I like.
Oh, we had a list, and I think we had like maybe one.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So we should probably try to end soon. I know there was a couple questions that I don't even know if these people are still on or not. There's one or two that might be worth addressing really quickly before we wrap it up. Did you see any questions that?
Just the one from Sweetie Case 1 about if the Father's Jehovah, the Son is Jesus, then who is the Holy Spirit? That might be a long answer though.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on real quick. I just remembered. I don't want to be too mixed up. I know I started out that last thing that we were talking about was saying there's a couple examples. So I'm not going to go into these, but I just want to show you examples of doubters and the way Jesus responded. So Mark 9:24 is a good example of the father who said he believed, but help him overcome his unbelief. Jesus didn't respond to the sincere doubter by condemning him of being blinded by Satan, but he actually helped him out. Another example, a really good example is, if I can find where I stuck it. Well, I'll just search it real quick. Hold on. Okay, so it's Mark 14. Nope, that's not it. Okay, well, I'm not going to take time to find it because I'm taking up too much time here. So it's the example of John the Baptist. John the Baptist is in prison soon before he's beheaded, and John
are
himself,
you the one who was to come, or should we expect someone else?
Right. So John the Baptist himself is doubting, and he sends his disciples to Jesus to ask if Jesus is really who he thought he was.
Right.
And Jesus' response to him again isn't to say, well, you don't have faith and you have seeds of Satan that are been sown into your heart, or you're just blinded by Satan. Any sort of response like that. That's not how he responds.
Right.
So do you know where that is? It'd be worth probably at least just
let me look. I can
direction.
find it. Hang on, give me just a second. That's what the verse says. Well, in NIV, are you the one who was to come, or should we expect someone else?
Okay.
Are you the one?
Oh, there it is. Matthew 11. So that story's in Matthew 11. If you want to read that, and so again, those are just examples that I think just kind of go along with all that whole discussion we were just talking about how Jesus responded to people who I feel like are like us in this situation, who have sincere questions and doubts. I think is probably a loose term in this instance, because I think we have more than doubt when it comes to the WMSCOG. But I think that we're sincere. We're not just doing this because we want to reject the teachings of Jesus, or we want to rebel against his commands or anything like that. We just look at what Jesus taught, and it is we have some serious issues, and we see some extreme contradictions, and so we're asking questions. And I think the example Jesus gave is that he would address those questions in a sincere, helpful way, and he wouldn't just simply pass us off and say, well, you guys are blind, you're the devil, etc.